when you move to AI, there is this, I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like being high, where you are able to do things that are just incredible. You can build things in a matter of minutes that would have otherwise taken you weeks. You can build in languages that you don't even know because it doesn't really matter anymore. Why does it matter if you know Go or not? It doesn't. What matters is that you have a good test suite and that everything passes. And so I go between these extremes of being like, wow, this is incredible, versus mourning what I don't get to do anymore. The thing that I love.
Losses, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey there, welcome to Better Talks, the podcast.
I am Rick.
And I am Oscar. And today we are joined by Burke Holland, developer advocate, longtime VS Code and GitHub voice, and one of the best known communicators in modern developer tooling and AI assistant coding.
Wow, what an intro. I'll take it.
Welcome, Burke.
Welcome. Yeah, that's quite the intro, right? One of the best known communicators in modern developer tooling and AI assisted coding.
That's going in the bio. I'm putting that on Twitter right now.
Yeah, cool. I did some AI assisted intro writing.
Burke, for people listening who might not necessarily know, besides the awesome introduction that you just got, could you maybe give us a quick overview of what it is that you do over at Microsoft and what a typical day for you looks like, if that?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So, well, I currently work at GitHub. I've been working at Microsoft for many years, have recently switched over to reporting up through GitHub and working currently on the Copilot CLI. Had previously worked on Visual Studio Code, but as everybody knows, like, it's all agents all the way down now. So it really doesn't, at this point, it's somewhat irrelevant what tool you're using. What kind of matters is the harness, the agent harness. And so I'm still using Visual Studio Code. I run the harness in there, but so my job is a developer advocate. So my job is to take the stuff that we build and communicate as the best communicator in the world, which AI called me. The very best, the greatest. No one's ever seen anything like it. Yeah,
You
my
kind
job.
of remind me of somebody if you say it that way.
Right? Yeah. People, they're gonna love it. They're gonna love this whole podcast.
It's gotta
So
be
my
right.
job, or they're never gonna listen again. My job is to take what we're doing and bring it to folks so that they know what's actually happening, what we're building, what the tools can do, et cetera, et cetera. And when it comes to AI, this is the hardest. Simon Willison said, like, as a software engineer, it's taking every bit of his skill set and experience to actually be productive. And from a dev advocate point of view, it is taking every bit of my skill set to be productive and impactful, because part of my job is to show people how to use these tools to be productive. Like, you have skills and MCP servers and agents and et cetera, et cetera. How does any of that actually work? And the tough answer to that question is nobody knows. Nobody knows. Everybody's
We're all winging it right now.
Right, we're all winging
It's a
it.
moving
And
target, yeah.
Right, and even on the team, when we build features, we'll build a feature and we're like, well, maybe this will stick. And then you just kind of wait and see. Like, no one knows. Is this a feature that people will want to use? Will it help with workflows? So a typical day for me looks like I'm using the product. I'm mostly building demos, which is the other hard thing, is that when it comes to AI, people don't want to know how to build a demo. That's easy. It's how do you use it, like, in your day-to-day work? And that's where it becomes quite difficult if you don't work on a large project to tell people how to do that. But my day consists mostly of using the product, trying out the new stuff, like the bleeding edge features and things that we're shipping, and then, being on Twitter, being on Reddit, chatting with folks, making YouTube videos, making videos for product launches internally, providing feedback to the product teams. And of course, it's Microsoft, so a lot of meetings. A lot of meetings, guys.
Yeah,
Really?
you have to have meetings. So one of the things that actually stood out to us, and Oscar and I were talking about this earlier, is a couple years ago, DevRel was everywhere. And then we kind of hit like a bump in the road. It seems like so. There was like a year or maybe 2 years where it seemed to have lost interest, or companies seem to have lost interest in actually investing in developer relations. And now we're seeing it pop up all over back again. Is that something
Maybe
that
we're seeing just Burke. He's all over the place.
fair enough? But is that something that you can relate to, or is it completely opposite of what you've been experiencing over the past couple of years?
Yeah, so I would agree with that. I think it started to it peaked like during the pandemic when all the hiring peaked, right? When there's like that giant spike. And then of course now we're coming back down to the level that we were at before that giant spike, which feels like a lot of layoffs, but I think it's really just us going back to like a normal, what I would call normal, healthy tech employment. I know there's a lot of folks who've been laid off. If you heard that and you were like, that's not normal and healthy. Yes, I agree. Not for you, it is not. But generally speaking, the trend lines look that way. For developer relations, it did seem like we saw a huge spike at the same time. And it feels like it dropped off, and it feels like it's still, to me, dropped off. Like when I look at the job openings, the sizes of teams across, especially like your major players, like you want to look at Microsoft or Google or any of the Amazon, the big companies, and like who are the people that are working there and that are the voices of that you see and that you hear from, what do those teams look like? And it still looks a lot smaller to me than it was before the pandemic. So what was the question? Is it just like, why is that?
Yeah. No, like that you, like if you also see the same, like from your perspective, because like to me, like this is an opportunity where we're rethinking basically everything that we did past couple of decades. And it's like, okay, should we automate this process, or should we build a skill for this process now? Or is the process even valuable still? Like there's so much journey there. I've seen your demos and like it is a completely different way of working, and it happens over months, and there's a really big opportunity there to start talking about it, because you can build the tools, but if no one knows what they're capable of, we won't start using them the way they are intended to.
100%. And I think that I would say, when you talk about developer advocacy, there's like a couple ways to think about this. There's like what I do, which is a lot of very talking to you. What I do is you're basically talking to 20% of users who are very online, who are on X and on Reddit, and they're very engaged. But there's a huge chunk of users that are not, right? And that they're not on these, they have better things to do with their time than be on social media. And so they're not, but they are still developers. They are still a core part. They are still leaders in their organizations. And so for that 80%, there's like, I would call that skilling. And those folks generally find things when like they're evaluating a product and they go to the website and like, how quickly can we get them into the pit of success? How quickly can we move you from, I've installed it, how easy was that to do? And then how quickly can we get you to the point where you're like, wow, that's really good. I understand this. This is easy to understand. I think that people that are doing that, that's actually the most important place to be right now, because as we talked about, we're shipping things and we're shipping them so fast and no one really knows what to do, that we need people that can clearly articulate, here's what this is, here's how it works, here's how it may or may not fit into your workflow, depending on how your company does things. But now you understand how the building block works. Here's examples of workflows, et cetera, et cetera. I would call that skilling more than DevRel, or maybe DevRel needs to change, but yeah.
Yeah, just like you said, it's more, maybe it's education is too strong a word, but it's explaining how to use the tools, right? Because we actually had a couple of recordings earlier today, and one of the things that stood out was, and I'm going to oversimplify maybe a little bit, but Microsoft has always been a platform company, right? We've built a lot of platforms as Microsoft. And then sometimes people think if I turn it on, I will make a success. But turning it on is not, that's only half the job. You still need to implement. You need to build on top of such a platform. You need to be sure that you know how to actually execute within the context of that platform. And if you don't do that, or you don't do that correctly, then people might say this is useless, but actually it's just the way you're using it doesn't provide the value that you're actually looking for. So that's what you try to
Yeah.
add as a developer advocate, right?
100%, yes. And so when people say, I don't know the product does this, that's really a reflection on my ability to get the word out. Because as you know, Rick, like it often does. Like there's this old joke in Microsoft that we could just re-release Word and talk about a bunch of features that have been there for 10 years and it would look like in a completely different product because no one knows that stuff is in there. But it is. I think this stat is something like 9 out of every 10 feature requests for Office are already in the product, and people just don't know about it. Yeah,
It's one of those buttons.
yeah, at the
Or it's
top.
hidden in
It's somewhere in there, and that's
hidden in one of those menus.
that's tough. That's a tough thing.
It is.
So there's a balance between education versus like what we call product-led growth. Product-led growth is where the product guides you and helps you and points you to the right things so that they're discoverable. Because as a user, there's two different ways to think about it. It can be the onus is on the user to sink all of their time and energy into learning your product. That's a lot to ask of someone.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can try to bring them along so that it's just effortless to get up and be productive. And that makes people want to discover and learn more about the product.
Yeah, what I think is interesting, like now hitting on like there is like I don't know how many buttons and sub menus in there, but like my experience now, like the interaction is so completely different. I'm using some kind of tool. I'm using Copilot. I'm using whatever. It's a weird text-based interface, whereas like I want to do this. I'm curious if I can do this. I can actually ask the thing itself if it's capable of doing that or instruct me how to do that. And that feels so like double, like Inception kind of.
Or use the one tool to ask to write a description on how to instruct the other tool, right?
Like it feels completely different. Where normally you need either like a quick intro course or like good UX or hunting down all the buttons until you find what might be in there. And now you can just ask. And then it gives you the answer of how to ask it the right way. But I think that's such a weird way of, I don't know, interacting with a computer basically.
It's not what we're used to, right?
Devs are getting the hang of it. And I think, but like I think this whole, how you approach DevRel and whatever, you will start seeing this in different places where people basically interface with computers. How to do their work. You need a voice there. It's like, but you could just document
just ask
what you want and you ask. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But the trick there, what's tricky, you're right in the sense that this is particularly helpful for when you're like trying to get up and running and there's configuration errors. Like the thing can configure itself. If you just ask, it will tell you, or it will often do. Like the other day, it was yesterday, I was working on something and I pinged the engineer who was working on it. I was like, this doesn't work. Like, what am I missing here? And I was like, wait a minute. Why am I asking this guy? Let me just ask Copilot. But like you have to think about it differently. But I think when it comes to product features, this is tougher because you don't know what to ask. Like you don't know, nobody knows that when you're using the Copilot CLI, if you have a request that's in progress, you can still interact with that agent. You don't have to wait for it to finish. There's a /ask tool that you can use to ask questions that you can do at the same time. But the thing is, like, you wouldn't even know what to look for or how to ask for that.
Yeah.
Or things like Chronicle, which goes back and looks at your history and then can give you tips and et cetera, or it can tell you what you did last week. Again, you don't know that the feature is there. You're not even really sure how to ask for that. So I think discoverability is still a problem. But I do think that any problem that we have is ultimately addressable with AI. Just somebody has to build that automation or expose it in a way that makes sense to the user.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then talking about GitHub CLI, because or Copilot CLI, you've talked about that a couple of times now. For the people listening who might not know the product, could you maybe give a short introduction? Because one of the things that's interesting, I think at least, that we see now is that more and more we're thinking about the fact that you need to be where your users are, right? And with .NET, I used to be a full Visual Studio guy all the time. Then whenever I needed to do something for web, VS Code came into play.
Right.
Now I'm VS Code and CLI all the way. Instead of when there's something that I really can't figure out a way to do in either of those tools, then I'll boot up full Visual Studio because there's muscle memory there that helps me. But GitHub Copilot CLI is very much or so close to all of the other CLI tools that we have. It's so powerful for people who are used to using the CLI, but still, apparently, not all people know of its existence. So maybe you could give a high-level overview of what it is that you can actually do with that tool.
Yeah, that's a great setup there, Rick. Appreciate that. There's like the first mover penalty or whatever this is called, and Copilot has this in spades, right? Where Copilot comes out and it's autocomplete. And for a long time, that's how people think of it, as this magic autocomplete, which is crazy. No one had ever seen anything like that. And then we sort of moved into these agents where you now have chat in the sidebar. And then the next iteration of that was, well, now the chat in the sidebar can edit the files in the project. And now we're just all the way at the end. Of course, everybody's at a different place along the journey where you're just prompting, talking with an agent, and the agent's actually writing all the code, running the tests, doing all of the work. You're sort of managing the process. And when you get to that point, then the tools kind of change. And so, like, if we're being fair, we have to give credit to Claude Code for sort of pioneering this idea that, like, what if you did this all in the terminal? And what's interesting about this is I heard an interview with Boris where he talked about he built this in the terminal. That was not the end goal. It's just that was the easiest place to make it work.
Shortcut. Yeah.
It's a shortcut. But as it turns out, it's actually super useful because when you're working with agents, in a typical code editor, the code is front and center. That is the main point. Most of the UI is reserved for the code in a tab. But when you're working with agents, you actually don't want to see all of that because it's super distracting from the work. As a developer, you just get nerd sniped. The more that you can see, the more you get nerd sniped, and you keep stopping and checking and looking. And if you remove all of that, then it's much easier to just let the AI do what the AI does and let it be an agent, and stop as a human trying to interfere with everything that it's doing and focus more on the agentic experience. The terminal forces that paradigm on you, and it's actually really, really nice. Terminals have always been a very clean, simple way to work with a computer. It's like the most simple way to work with a computer. And I think that there's something charming about being in a terminal and talking with an AI where it's like you're close to the rails technology-wise, but you're working on the cutting edge with an AI. So all said to say, the Copilot CLI is a terminal interface in which you can work with Copilot the agent to write code, build projects, but really do anything, right? I use it to create documents. I use it to triage Slack. I use it to read YouTube video transcripts and give me ideas for titles and descriptions, right? Like, it's just an interface with an agent that can do pretty much anything because it can run tools on your computer. So it can run bash scripts, it can write code in the background, it can write its own scripts and execute them. And so it's just a different way of thinking about interacting with an agent that isn't a code editor, because you don't need the full editor experience right out of the box. You just need the ability to talk to the agent, and that's what the Copilot CLI is. Just chatting with the agent in the terminal.
It's so funny because in the episode we recorded before this one, I actually told Oscar that I had the feeling that because I wanted to have a grip on what's actually happening with the agents writing code, because I used to do that myself. Now the agent does it, so I want to know what's happening. That's actually exactly what you're describing, what happens when you do agent Copilot in VS Code, because you see the files pop up or the changes come in and you think, what's it doing there? And why is it doing this? And exactly what you're saying, but I had never looked at it that way. The moment you do that in GitHub Copilot CLI, you lose or you lose, but you're no longer distracted by everything that's happening in the background.
It's also a discussion that we had. It's like now, like if we're working like this, we might be like 3 p.m. completely burned down because we did so much. And like one of the theories there, like, is it because we're taking so much decisions, this really heavy cognitive load, or is it because we're distracting ourselves also with all the details seeing flying by, which is actually none of our business in most cases.
Yeah, but, and I'm curious on your stance about this, Burke. But for me, initially, that helped in getting to learn what it's actually doing, but also trusting in what it's doing and accepting what's coming out of it. Right?
Yeah, I think this is the quiet part that needs to be said out loud, which is that in order to really use agents, you have to get out of your own way. The agent is never going to write code the way that you would write code because you are a craftsman and you have very specific ideas about the way that the code should be written. And the agent is not. Now, we try to get it close to that using instructions, etc. But if you're trying to get it to write code exactly like you're going to become frustrated and you're going to say that AI is no good. And so you have to, I guess what I'm trying to say here is that you have to let go a little bit and say, okay, I'm going to be less worried about this, and we're going to be more worried about the processes and the gates that ensure that the code that we're shipping is high quality. But I'm not going to agonize over every single line as it gets written. We're going to put the correct checks in place downstream, and we're going to handle this with further AI checks, etc. But I'm going to let go of the fact that it's not doing it exactly the way that I want it done. And that's okay.
And that's not a new process, but this is normally, I don't know, being a very experienced engineer and starting to work and run multiple teams and not decide of all the little details. It takes a while of like trying to micromanage pull requests and whatever to just let go. It's like these guys are capable and I can trust them.
They know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing. I should focus on the bigger decisions. The funny part is now every dev is becoming basically a manager of agent teams. I just don't know. Like there are two things I think in there. I don't know if everyone really is suitable to just organize. And because a lot of people I know, they love their work and their tinkering. They will push back a bit on this.
But I love my servers.
I love the casing style that I developed myself. No, but like there's also, I spent 20 years honing this craft. Like it is a sense of loss there. Like you're taking something away from someone that they thought were like most of their skill set. It's hard discussion.
It takes some getting used to. The role of developer is constantly changing, and I think AI is changing it quite massively. But but it will continue to be a craft, like Burke said.
Yeah, I've said before that when it comes to AI, I feel I have a lot of cognitive dissonance. So the cognitive dissonance is this: I love to write code. I've never been particularly good at it. Like just being honest with you, like I'm a solid dev. But you don't want me anywhere near the Windows kernel. You don't want me touching VS Code internals and performance, right? But I really liked organizing code. Specifically, I liked the organization and putting pieces together and making components and snapping those in. And the way that feels, it feels so good. There's a part of human beings that really likes maintenance. Maintenance is really good for your soul. And a lot of coding is just maintenance, right? You're just improving the structure and everything's clean and the room is well organized. But then when you move to AI, there is this, I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like being high, where you are able to do things that are just incredible. You can build things in a matter of minutes that would have otherwise taken you weeks. You can build in languages that you don't even know because it doesn't really matter anymore. Why does it matter if you know Go or not? It doesn't. What matters is that you have a good test suite and that everything passes. And so I go between these extremes of being like, wow, this is incredible, versus mourning what I don't get to do anymore, the thing that
One
I
of our
love.
losses, yeah.
Yeah. And so there's just,
Yeah.
for me, there's a lot of cognitive dissonance. Like, I'm just being honest with you. It doesn't feel good. I'm mentally, it's been a challenge for me over the past really since December when Opus 4.5 came out.
That was a
everyone's
that was a
turning
turning
point.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. And I built I think I built an iOS app with it over Christmas break while I was installing some window blinds. And I was like, okay,
That's the other thing, right? You can get so much distance between you and the actual details. You're multitasking like crazy. Like you can do something completely different next to it sometimes.
Yes, but then for me, I find that I have a really hard time with this because maybe it's just how my brain works, but I'm very single-threaded. I need to work on one thing and stay focused on that thing. And I think as human beings, our brains are not really calibrated for the kind of work that AI wants to do, which is all of it. And so you're moving between like 4 projects and creating documents and triaging things and right. And so you're always adding in another thing to do because you can do all the work if only you can do it, right? You're the bottleneck. And so
Well, that's you're missing all the handovers that you used to have with other people and stuff. So you just continue. You don't know when to stop.
Well, it's like we've got to. If your brain is a car engine, it's like we've revved it to, however many revs. There's too many. I'm not a car person. Maybe it's like 9. It's in the red.
9K,
right?
9K is a lot.
There we go. Okay, so it's in the red, and it just stays there. And this, I don't think this is not feasible long term. People are going to burn out. Like you can't do that to your brain. And I don't have a great answer for this. I don't know what the answer is.
But again, we're learning along the way, and we're learning by doing. And I think currently that's the only way we can learn how to do this, by actually doing and seeing what works and what doesn't.
Correct, but it also feels like I'm part of a psychological experiment that I didn't sign up for. Like it's doing things to my mind. It's causing me, and I notice this where like I'm talking to my family and I'm having trouble looking people in the eye or paying attention to what they're saying because I'm thinking about what I could be doing, things I could build because now it's trivial to build them, problems I could be solving. I'm having trouble sleeping because my brain is going and I'm thinking about things, and I'll frequently get up in the middle of the night and come down and start some other process. Because there's 4 hours until I got to be back at work. This could get done by the time I'm back at my desk. This is not sustainable.
Nope.
We can't live like this.
You mentioned before the next to the sense of loss or whatever. Like you also have the part where you like get the high of, I don't know, the Tony Stark way of building something by just like I want this, and this, slam it together, and we have something. That high, I think it is slightly addictive, and we're indeed in that experiment where we don't know what, I don't know, feeling or state we need to be aware of. It's like, okay, this is enough for today, because we know like we just got a gift, and it's like eternal people just cramming out code for us. It's like, why wouldn't my next idea be now? And
Yeah,
I don't know, I'm guessing that's learning. It's like we just do this. This is the max we put in one, I don't know, change or PR, or like we need to know how to scope this. Or thought even like.
I can't remember who, somebody on X had made this comment to me that like human beings are not designed to deal with infinite creative possibility. Right. And that's really what we're dealing with, is that we're now in the infinite, right? There isn't any limit. And so you basically, in order to
get some token limits, but
well,
especially starting June when we go to the usage-based billing, right?
I mean, maybe that's the saving grace here, but then people just move on to some open source model, right? But this idea that we're now dabbling in infinite capability, which is that's just not. I think we're dealing with a force that we don't fully understand. And I am a little concerned because we know that it causes psychosis in otherwise healthy people. You've seen the stories about. There was one I watched about a guy who became convinced that he had developed some new math around pi, the number pi, and he went for months, and then it was telling him like, you need to contact the U.S. government because you've created this thing. It's super powerful, and it turns out none of that's true, right? But I think that as developers, we get into a similar psychosis when it's just constantly telling you, oh, that's a great idea. Oh, you know what? That is better than what I was doing. Yeah, really good call on doing that. When it may or may not be a good call, but it's not going to tell you that it's not a good idea. It's not going to push back and be like, yo, did you even think about what you asked before you just asked me that? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. If we do that, it's going to increase the costs of bandwidth by 3x, but it will never say that. So what is the damage that is done when you have something all day long telling you that you are the smartest, all your ideas are good, you're brilliant, there's never been anybody like you, and then you got to go home and be with your family.
No, but imagine in other parts of life you're being like stimulated all the time that you can do that. Oh, that's a great idea. Like you will take ridiculous risks.
Yeah.
Like it's
100%.
Like, yeah.
And we already know that, like, we know for certain that this does damage, like, to kids. So, for instance, like, we have an entire generation of kids that were raised with being told that everything that they did was fine, and that, there's no such thing as a loser, everybody wins. And now we're sort of dealing with the long tail of that, which is that, a lot of kids as they get to early adulthood that have been raised that way, mine included, are having a really tough time because that isn't how the world works at all. Nope. Right?
No.
And so they're just completely unprepared, and that's on us. We did that to them. No. But what is the AI is essentially doing the same thing to us, right? You can't be told all the time that you're right and you're smart and everything that you say is brilliant, and then have to go out and interface with people who are not going to think that because it isn't true.
Nope. Well, maybe for some of us, but most of
for Rick. But,
yeah. I'm not referring to myself.
Yeah, well,
no.
Sounded like it.
No. So, Oscar, would you happen to know the time?
It's time for a totally random question.
Burke,
yes.
If you had to give a 10-minute conference talk tomorrow on a topic completely outside of your field, what would that be?
See, these are random.
I would give completely outside of my field.
Maybe you have a hobby that you're really passionate about. Or,
so inside your knowledge.
If you want.
Yeah, right. So
or maybe something that could also be a topic where you think, I should still dive into so-and-so. So if you do, that's the conference-driven learning that we used to do a couple of years ago.
I'm trying to think. As we just previously discussed, this is all I do and think about. So it's actually legitimately hard. I think I would do a conference talk on finding meaning when after your kids have grown up and moved out of your house. Just because I've been going through that, where I had 3 boys, all 3 of them graduated and are gone, and I've been dealing with this like existential question of what is my purpose? Because it was always, I'm a dad, that's what I do, and now nobody needs me anymore. What is my purpose?
I would come to that talk because my kids are just under that age. They're 14 and almost 16. So I will be there in a couple of years from now. So I would come to that talk.
Okay. And I don't have an answer.
And that doesn't, I mean, even sometimes the best way of processing something is by talking about it with people who are experiencing the same, right?
Yeah.
And I can also imagine the person sitting across from me might join as well.
Yeah, my three oldest boys don't seem to need me as much. There's at least a little girl that still needs their daddy, but the other guys are they home today? I don't know. Sometimes I don't see him for weeks.
There's an app for that.
Yeah.
Okay, switching gears a little bit, but still staying on topic, Burke. One of the things that you wrote down is developer education in the short form or short video era. And I mean, I just said it. My boys are 14 and almost 16. Everything needs to be quick. I mean, even YouTube videos that go on for like more than 10 minutes are boring.
These podcasts for old people.
Okay, fair enough. But is there something that you explicitly do to try and continue to capture people that have that short attention span currently?
Yeah. I mean, I've often said that short form video is like God's gift to developer advocates because it allows you to show people one cool thing or give them one idea inside of, 30 seconds. Sometimes you can do it in less than 10 seconds. And that's all you need to do. And if you do that, and you consistently do that, I think in VS Code, we did it 3 or 4 times a week. And these people are hitting these shorts in their feeds. By the time they've seen 50 of them, they know a lot about Visual Studio Code because you have given them 50 individual ideas, because that's all people can absorb is one idea at a time. And so it's a really good way to subversively, I say, you can sort of teach people without them having to come and engage in a long, let's do a workshop. It's an hour and a half. That's a lot. Most people are just like, you have to like mentally psych yourself up for that, but you can actually learn on short form without even knowing that you're learning.
Yeah, I can see that one. But the thing there is, how do you reach your demographic, right? Because if you have a YouTube video and you can put some marketing or at least some communication around that, you probably know that it will reach the right audience. I think that's a lot harder with things like Instagram or TikTok or Snap or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, depending on what platform you're on, you're going to get different demographics, right? So if you're on YouTube, you're going to reach a mostly male audience who is mostly, at least I'm just thinking about for our channels, is in like the 25 to 45 range. But if you go to, say, Instagram or TikTok, then you'll reach a much larger female audience, first of all. And second of all, you'll reach a much younger demographic. So lots of students, right? My kids sometimes would tell me like, a freaking VS Code short is in my feed. Please stop making those. You're ruining social media. But that's great, right? Like from our perspective, when you're Microsoft, we want to talk to everybody. We don't want to talk to just who you think of in your head when you think of a Microsoft dev, right? If you're 15 years old and you're building, we want to talk to you. We want to show you what you can do. If you're 85 and you're building, we want to talk to you. We want to show you what you can do. And so it's really great to not be locked into these platforms where the demographics are kind of a prison and no one outside of that hears you or knows about you.
Yeah, I can also imagine that the younger demographic is also more easily targeted now with all of the changes recently to .NET and with top-level commands or statements and that kind of stuff. It makes the entry level to go and start building stuff with .NET at least a lot easier as well, right?
Very much so. And the other thing to remember is one of the things that you learn in developer advocacy is that most people are at a very basic level. Most of your consumers are at this very fundamental level. They need to understand fundamental concepts. That there is a never-ending amount of those people, and that you will almost always overestimate where your audience is at. And this is something I have to keep reminding myself every time I make a video, is that you can't assume that they know what you're talking about. You have to be able to break it down. And so I think if you're able to do that in shorts and make it so that it isn't so so that people don't get what I call the Photoshop effect. So the Photoshop effect is when you open a product that you don't know how to use, like Photoshop, and you're just inundated with buttons and concepts. You just close it. You're like, nope.
Yeah, with sliders and windows and things. And
Exactly. Like I've been going through this with DaVinci Resolve. It's the same thing. Like you open DaVinci and you're like, no, you know what? I'm just not going to make any videos. And so being able to break that down, and there's a guy that actually does DaVinci Resolve for noobs. He does these YouTube shorts. And when he does it, it looks simple. Like anybody can do this. I'm like, oh, I could do that. Yeah, that's shorts allow you to do that.
yeah.
I can imagine some people have that with False Visual Studio as well that didn't grow up.
Oh yes, oh yes. Well, actually,
yeah.
literally, one of my colleagues started dabbling in development as well and wanting to look at code. And I said, well, sometimes I need to go to full Visual Studio, and this might fit your thought train better. And they said, nope. I can get my thought around VS Code, but full Visual Studio, it's just too much. There's too much there. I don't understand. Which I can understand if it's new to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing's crazy. It can do everything.
Yeah. Where do you think developer tooling is heading in the next wave of agentic workflows?
I think we're reinventing the code editor, to be honest with you. So we started with the TUI, and we talked about why that's, or the terminal user interface is what that is. Why people like that, why that's great. And there's also this like ongoing question of like, why is it that people like the terminal so much? And I do have this hypothesis that also part of it is that we're not writing code anymore, but if you're in a terminal, at least you feel like you're still technical. You're like, yeah, I'm doing technical work. I'm in a terminal, aren't I? But then like you do need to look at a diff, or you need to be able to rewind to different sessions that you had, or you want to browse MCP servers from a marketplace or plugins from a marketplace, or fill in the blank, right? Like you need these different UI elements that aren't there in the terminal, and then that can get pretty frustrating pretty quick. And so we're rebuilding these new interfaces. So for instance, like Visual Studio Code now has agents, and agents is just the agentic take on UI. So it's just chat and your sessions, a terminal, and a diff on the side, essentially. Everything is handled for you behind the scenes. Work trees get created automatically. Git is handled automatically. The agent handles everything, but if you need to like do diffs or see what's in a file or just look at the structure of a project, you can do that. And I think that as we learn more about agentic engineering, we're rebuilding the code editor. But when we get there, it won't look like the code editor. It will look different, but it will still be like an IDE of sorts. The code will not be the main point.
One of the things that I've seen pop up recently, I think since this week, I'm not sure, is when an agent is working for me in VS Code, I now get an MD file that pops up that has all of the steps that it's actually executing. And it has this progress bar in it, which auto updates while the agent's actually working on it. So not only do I get feedback in the agent screen itself, I now also see in the bigger real estate of my screen, I see an MD that actually says, so I'm doing this, I'm taking this out, I'm adding this in, I'm at step 5 of 8 right now, and this is what I will continue to be doing, which really takes you along for the ride, so to speak. Is that also something that it's a relatively new addition, right?
Where is this? Is this in Visual Studio?
In VS Code. When
gotcha.
an agent is working for me.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I've been on the Copilot CLI, so this is a feature I'm not familiar with. But this is what I mean by we're shipping features so fast that it's very difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, but like the goal, like it's obvious. Like this week, or yesterday, I was actually checking, and I was working. Well, like sometimes in the CLI, sometimes in VS Code in the chat window. And I did some spec kit work, and like it is a lot of fun. But at some point, it's like, why am I looking at the right bottom of my screen and sometimes accidentally pressing enter when I'm still conveying with that thing? This is the only thing I'm doing. Why is this not front and center? And is my workflow completely different? And of course, I can pop the chat in the big screen, and it's like, but this is the thing I'm mainly doing.
Yeah.
And I have now a code editor, which takes up most of my space. I want a browser that I see my output that it's building or testing it for myself or whatever. And I'm working in this teeny tiny chat session somewhere.
So move to Copilot CLI.
Yeah, but that's the thing. But also, like, you need the in-depth features. Yep. You're interacting also with Git, and we did have the shift. Like for years, we didn't have a proper terminal in Visual Studio. Like VS Code was part of the initial thing. Is like there are multiple terminals there with tabs and things. Like awesome. I was really missing that in the basically in the Windows side. Like before that, I did a lot of things on the Unix kind of Linux kind of side. So I was used to working in the terminal all day. But you see that shift there when .NET became but like everything you could compile the command line and you do all, like it used to be magic under F5 in Visual Studio, but like everything was command line first. You would do your packages there, and so that has its space. And of course, VS Code, like the agents came a bit later, so it's a sidebar. But like it makes complete sense to like rethink this. And I think indeed what you say, Burke, like when we're done, it doesn't even look like the thing we started with. Like then you know what it should have been.
Yeah, but we only know once we're there.
Yeah.
Yeah, for myself, I use Visual Studio Code and I use the Copilot CLI in tabs, in terminal tabs. So essentially, it's for those who don't know, right, in Visual Studio Code, you can take the terminal and make it a tab in the editor, and this means it takes like the whole editor, which is what you want. And then the chat sidebar I actually keep closed, and instead I put the terminal there, and so I can see the terminal on the left, I can see my project structure and diffs on the right, and then in the middle I have the CLI, and I do that because I still need all this other stuff. And I like the ergonomics of the CLI. Again, it's very like hands on the keyboard. If you need to do something, it's like a slash command or it's a keyboard shortcut. Like it's very fast. I hate to sound like somebody who uses Vim. This is why Vim people never left the terminal, because they're just, it's very, very fast. The less you have to touch a mouse, the more you can keep your hands on the keyboard. The less you touch a mouse, you're just going to be faster in your ability to move. And terminals are just amazing for this. They're built for, they have no concept of a mouse, really. And so that's the paradigm that I'm working in. I think all these products that are being created are interesting and good, and I've used them all, but I still haven't found anything that replaces, for me, just running the Copilot CLI inside of a tab in the terminal in Visual Studio Code.
I'm going to try out that that alignment, to see how it works. But like that's also the thing, right? Like there's no real... Well, there is guidance in the form of you promoting these things, but like there's no obvious way you should do it like this, because it was code completion, and we went into a chat that could actually change your code files, and then we got a CLI, and like some people are working there, the other people are still doing what they were doing half a year ago, but just with a better model.
But it's also a matter of taste, right? Or maybe better,
but you
a matter
don't know
of
what
where
you don't know. So you might not even be confronted. Like, oh, can I run the terminal in the tabs of the browsers, or just thinking it's only in the bottom, so I will open actual terminal.
Or maybe it's maybe not a matter of taste, but more a matter of where you are in the journey towards the end goal.
Definitely.
So, Burke, we've been. I have a feeling like we could have hours more discussion, but we're nearing the end of this episode. Is there anything that you would like to get back to, or maybe anything that you would like to add on top of what we've already discussed?
I mean, I think we've touched on kind of the major themes. I would say the only other thing that I would add here is that, in my mind, there are inflection points in AI, and we are at another inflection point. This is probably a different podcast, but the first inflection point for me was GitHub Copilot completions in 2021. I think was the first time I saw that, when they demoed it internally, and I was like, "What is that?" The second one was ChatGPT was the next major inflection point. The Opus 4.5 being released in December was the next major inflection point. And I think we're now at some what I would call software 3.0, or that's what Karpathy calls it, using his term. And software 3.0 is essentially OpenClaw. And people are going to hear that and they're going to cringe. But when you really get into it, and you have a claw, whether that's OpenClaw or NanoClaw, or we at Microsoft we have our own things that we use. We're probably not supposed to talk about Rick here, but when you get into that, you stop using interfaces for things and you just use the agent, and the agent does everything. And it's hard to explain and even understand until you see it, because it's a completely different way of looking at the world. And I think we're at that inflection point. So I would just encourage people that are listening right now, try to get past the hype of OpenClaw and just install it somewhere and start working with it and trying to figure out, what is it that I can do? What can I automate with this thing? And because the answer is everything. Like, mine has been arguing with my insurance company for a refund over email for 3 months, and it just handles that for me. And I got the refund yesterday, right? So this is the next major inflection point, in my opinion. It's software 3.0, OpenClaw. We'll see if I'm right about that.
Let's have a discussion somewhere along the future and see if that statement still holds up.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Burke, thank you so much for being a guest. It was great having you on.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Great time.
And thank you for listening to Better Talks, the podcast. Better Talks is made possible by BetterBit Managed Software Development.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.